folks, Noeline Hofmann.
Hey, folks. Oh. That was the intro. Oh my god.
Fishing off the south side banks and bitching and moaning about the Ottawa man and how we need some goddamn rain. You know there's a few more issues here than angels. 3 times the churches as there's bars. Not much to do but drive, drink, and pray there, and try to keep your happenings behind closed doors. Kids all talk about leaving south towards the sweet grass hills mirage. But if a stone's thrown away is the hell out of Dodge, only the lucky ones make it that far. They like steaming up the windows, shooting prairie dogs, and crushing cans of Coors Light. And bitching and moaning about their daddy's rules. It's not like he never stayed out late, right? You know there's a few more issues here than angels. 3 times the churches as there's bars. Not much to do but drive, drink, and pray there, and try to keep your happiness behind closed doors. Yeah, I'm from a place right next door to nowhere, home of the Badland Boys, where they stomp and holler, yip and out, drown the coyotes' noise. They like cigarettes for breakfast, whiskey on the range, and fishing off the south side banks, and bitching and moaning about the Ottawa man and how we need some goddamn rain.
Fuck, that was awesome. Noeline Hofmann, everybody.
Misfits on vinyl. Two best friends shooting the shit about their favorite titles. Spencer and Aaron
And Noeline Hofmann.
Misfits on vinyl for me. Fuck John Cougar!
All right, hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Misfits on Vinyl. My name is Spencer Streichert. I'm an actor, comedian, and one of your tits.
My name is Aaron.
Aaron is an actor and the other tit.
Yeah.
And today, like last week, we're a tri-tit on the podcast.
Yeah.
We
The
have
third nipple.
you're the third nipple.
Congratulations.
We have a very special guest, country singer songwriter from right here in Alberta, from Bow Island, Noeline Hofmann. Everyone.
Yay.
I met you this summer at Brett Cassidy's outdoor backyard party.
That's right.
Which was
Good times.
honestly one of the most fun things I've ever been to. I got to just sit in a pool and listen to really talented people sing,
Nice.
and then I got to pass out when Amy Nelson was on stage, and Brett Cassidy went and gave me a blanket.
Sounds lovely.
Yeah, he's the type of man to make sure that you're cozy when you're sleeping on the ground. So Noeline, first off, I mean, this is the first time that we're actually sitting down and having a conversation that's not just at a bar or a show somewhere.
So true. Yeah, I'm so excited.
So so do you want to tell us just first, like, you're from Bow Island, but where exactly in Alberta is that located?
Bow Island is in between Medicine and Lethbridge on the number 3 highway, 3 hours south of Calgary.
Hell
Where we
yeah.
are today. Yeah.
All right, so that's like quite literally south central Alberta.
Yeah. It's like an hour-ish from the Montana border. So we're really far south.
Wow, yeah. So I had a similar geography when I grew up, because I grew up in the Cypress Hills, so right close to the Montana border. And you grew up on a ranch, right?
I actually didn't. When I was a toddler, there was a ranch, and then I grew up most of my life in town.
Really?
Yeah, I did. But very, very small town. I was on farms all the time, farms and ranches all the time, and then got into ranching or working as a ranch hand in high school, and then continued after high school. Yeah.
So what made you want to go back into ranching if like you had been away from it for a few years in your upbringing?
Yeah, I think that I just started to, learn more about my family's history, and I also started to become really passionate about the grasslands and preservation of the grasslands, and learned about how important cattle are to keeping our grassland sinks alive and well. And then, there was just a girl that was a mentor to me who took me under her wing, and I got really inspired and wanted to learn. So
that's awesome. And something that I think is interesting, I want to jump into this. It's kind of jumping ahead a bit, but would you say that being a cowboy is kind of like your biggest muse in your music? Because I notice a lot of your music has to do with like being a ranch kid, being in this rural lifestyle. Is that kind of something that you consistently draw from when you're writing, or is it like something that just it's super easy for you to talk about it because you know so much about it?
For sure, I guess just my upbringing I was surrounded by those kinds of people and those kinds of experiences all the time, so it's really natural for me to talk about that kind of imagery in my music.
Yeah, I mean, it's your identity, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I guess not growing up on her, I've kind of had to earn my boots a little bit, and I'm far from that, but yeah, it's just where I grew up, it comes naturally. So.
Well, like, I'm completely out of my element in this conversation. Last time I rode a horse, I fell off the fucking thing. So, his name was Fat Dan.
You ain't no cowboy if you haven't been thrown. So.
No, there you go. I guess I'm earning my boots too. So. If I were gonna earn boots, I'd earn boots like yours. Holy shit!
Yeah, those are
Look
cool
at
as
those
fuck.
Fucking things. Yeah, I commented on them earlier. They're sweet.
Thank you.
Yeah, those are really cool. So okay, one thing that I mean, we're talking about this. It's not a question that was in the document, but like throwing a curveball.
Yeah.
Your fucking fashion is dope, by the way. Like every time I see you, you're like wearing stuff that's like very Western, but like not in like a tacky way. And I hate because like I mean, but I think like part of that is probably because like you grew up in that environment, like you or like you've lived in that environment, you've worked in that environment, and I don't know personally. I get driven fucking crazy when it's Stampede and I see people walking around and I just go, oh, what you're wearing makes me angry. Like, it actually physically makes me angry.
It's pretty easy to spot some, all the power to him. I think it's great to celebrate, our Western culture and cowboy culture, but it's really easy to spot somebody that
Yeah, dudes. In
it
denim
hasn't grown
short
up around a
shorts.
rodeo crowd.
Yeah.
But it's okay. I love
Dudes
them
in
for
denim
it.
cutoffs. Yeah.
You know what though? I
More of
rocked
that.
some denim cutoffs before.
Yeah.
I have no shame in that. I have a picture of when I first moved into my fraternity. I had a Davy Shields Jr. T-shirt on, tucked into Daisy Duke cutoffs. I had my buckle on. I was wearing boots and a cowboy hat, and I'm smoking a dart in front of the liquor depot in Brentwood.
Well, when I first met you, you used to dress like you were on Dallas. Like you would wear a cowboy hat and a blazer, and you walk around. I was always tempted to be like, "Who shot JR? Who shot JR?"
I did, and I stole his fucking outfit. Apparently,
yeah. You just like dressed like you were like a 1982 cowboy.
I mean, I kind of am a 1982 cowboy.
Oh, really? Not anymore.
Well, I would okay. First off,
you're a city slicker now, bud.
I would disagree. The fact that I was on Billy the Kid, and they threw me on a horse that was not a fucking film horse, and I know this because it tried to buck me off multiple times, and there's one take that got ruined because this horse started just fucking crow hopping in a circle, and I stopped being an actor in that moment, and I started being myself at 16, and I took the boots to this little prick, and I went, "You fucking cunt!" And I'm like yanking on the reins, trying to just get him to stop. And then they called cut, and they're like, "Hey, can you not do that in the next take?" I'm like, "Can you fucking not? Like, I did more to break your horse than you fucking obviously have." Like,
yeah, they can't. They can't put that on FX. I don't think.
No, MGM Plus. Okay,
Plus,
so
nice.
I have a
streaming service I've never heard of.
Yeah, exactly. No one has. That's why it's. I'm not going to talk about Billy the Kid. Okay.
Fair enough.
Okay, so I do have a list of questions here, and I. The only reason I bring this up is because I'm always interested to see like what someone's path was to get into the arts in whatever way they're going. So, like, what was it that made you want to become a singer-songwriter, and was it something that you always had the dream of doing?
Yeah, I guess deep down, I always knew that I wasn't on a normal career path. Like I don't know if it was always a singer-songwriter. I mean, yeah, I always did. I always knew, but I denied it for a long time in myself. Just because, yeah, growing up in a small town, I didn't have any example of somebody that had done it. So it just wasn't something I really chased until I jumped in with both feet this January into my professional career. But sorry, I think I lost track of the.
No, that does answer it a bit, but I guess like because I had a similar thing where like I wanted to be in the performing arts and I wanted to do that, but you never see it in a small town, and it is difficult to like kind of make that jump and to go, this is attainable.
Yeah, exactly.
It's an interesting thing too. I was listening to I'm like a really big fan of The Sopranos TV show, so I was watching this video about James Gandolfini, and he was doing an interview, and he was talking about how he always knew he wanted to be an actor. There was a point in time where he wasn't ready to admit it to himself.
Yeah,
he was making all these moves, and he moved to New York, and he was like, yeah, like when I think back on it, I moved to New York. I worked as a nightclub bouncer and worked in the nightclub scene, but I always knew I moved there to be an actor. I just wasn't ready to take that dive yet. And I think a lot of people that are in the arts experience that as well.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You're making all these moves. You have the dream, but you're not ready to jump in and believe in yourself fully to do it. And that's a big part of it too. I think that's the most courageous part about being an artist is actually believing in yourself, getting the confidence to believe I can do it, and I can do it professionally, and I can do it at a level where I'm proud of what I'm doing. And that takes time, and it takes a lot of self-growth too to do it. But yeah, I mean, it's super commendable what you're doing. It's great.
Well, and to go back to that, so like you didn't have any examples of like people that were doing it, but how long have you been playing for?
I guess I grew up taking music lessons growing up and was in a household that loved music. So how long have I been playing? I guess I started taking my guitar playing a little bit more seriously in high school. I've been writing songs since I was 13.
Oh, wow.
Maybe. But yeah, and then started taking it seriously this January.
What sort of music were you listening to growing up? What sort of
Growing
stuff
up,
was playing in the house, playing in the car?
lots of classic country music, lots of Elvis,
Nice.
Johnny Cash, Patsy Cline, Creedence Clearwater Revival.
CCR,
Yeah.
nice.
I got in shit for saying their full name. Why didn't you give?
Sorry.
Yeah, they are referred to as CCR.
Yeah.
I like that story with John Fogerty that when he went solo, right, he recorded, and he got sued by the record label that owned all of the CCR copies for sounding too much like CCR. He's fucking John Fogerty. Yeah. He is CCR, yeah. Whatever, center field or whatever. That's funny.
God.
I also grew up listening to Elvis and Johnny Cash. I'm from Newfoundland originally, so we listened to a lot of that, and then we listened to a lot of like traditional Newfoundland music. But I'm always curious what people listened to when they were growing up. Yeah. So, a lot of crossover. I'm sure you listen to a lot of similar stuff too.
Yeah, it was a weird hodgepodge of music growing up because like my mom was like I don't know, growing up in the 90s it was different because like a lot of the stuff that you heard on country music radio in the 90s was, I would say, the last generation of like popular country music that was like good. Like you had like Alan Jackson, Jody Messina, you had, George Strait, you had like these absolute powerhouses. So that was a big part of it. And then like my grandpa listened to Willie Nelson and Johnny Cash and Waylon Jennings. Waylon Jennings is probably my all-time favorite. And then like I don't know, my dad was more of like a rock guy. So I kind of got like a deep cut of a lot of different genres, but it wasn't it's hard to nail it down. I kind of started to find my own way in high school with music because I was like, oh, there's better shit than what my parents were listening to.
There's this funny story about my grandfather. They worked up north in Fort Mac, my dad and my grandfather. And my grandfather said that there was this Johnny Cash CD that was stuck in the CD player. So every day they were listening to Johnny Cash, driving back and forth to work. My grandpa goes home one time earlier than my dad. My dad pressed the eject button. The CD came right out. My grandpa just didn't want to listen to anything else.
That's awesome.
He's like, fuck you guys. I want to listen to strictly Johnny Cash. The same 12 songs. Yeah.
That's so funny. So I have a question about songwriting. Like you said, you've been doing it since you were 13, but like, what's kind of the impetus behind writing a song? Like, is it, and what's your process? Like, do you sit down and focus on like, I'm going to write a song today? Or is it kind of, it comes in spurts? Like you might get like a lyric or a chord or something.
Yeah, it's lots of bolts of lightning for me. Like I'm always writing lyrics in my phone throughout the day, or like walking down the street like a freak and putting like little things that I hear. But yeah, when I write, it's pretty chaotic. My notebooks are, when I sit down to write a song, it's not, it's not line for line. It's like a modge podge of lines, and it's like solving a puzzle for me. Yeah.
I've heard it described too. Like I think it was Mick Jagger talking about it. How it's not like the song's coming out of him; it's like the song's coming through him. Yeah. So
I feel that.
Yeah, I feel like that's a common theme with a lot of songwriters is that it doesn't feel like it's actually coming out of them; it's just coming through them. And whatever they can get out, and that when it hits them, they get it down to paper, get it on the guitar, then they starts to come a full-fledged idea, right?
Lots of times, like I do think hard about my songs and stuff, but lots of my best songs I feel like were just kind of, they're just channeled through me. And after I wrote a song and it's all together, and then I look back and think of it, I'm like, who wrote this song? Like it's just like it's definitely I relate.
Where do you think
to
it's coming from? I guess that's the big question, right?
I don't know.
Yeah, that's what they said too. They said, I don't know where it's coming
energy.
from.
I don't know. Just tapped in, I guess.
Plugged in, right?
I'm just riding that.
Plugged into the universe.
Yeah, right. Yeah. No big deal.
I heard them talking about their new album, and I thought it was super interesting. I've heard it described that way before too. And they asked a similar question, like, where do you think that comes from? And they were like, fuck if I know.
Yeah. It's definitely can be a spiritual experience for me. Just
Oh, that's cool. That's super cool.
Well, and I feel like it's interesting too, because it like what you said about constantly writing lyrics. Do you find you'll write lyrics and then not have any idea where they're going, and then you start writing a song and you're like, oh shit, I can throw 50 of these in this?
Yeah, like there's some lines or little hooks and stuff that I've just had sitting in my brain for 2 years or something, that it's just, and then finally it's like sometimes the whole song doesn't get written, but eventually like there's a reason that little line came about. There's always sometimes the story or your experience hasn't fully happened yet, but yeah, definitely have a lot of random shit all over my phone. Yeah.
Well, something to kind of go off of that, like, because I know, you know, like we've obviously been like, we're a music history podcast. We've got our ear to the sidewalk.
Yeah,
We've got our finger on the pulse of what's happening in the music industry, you know. But one thing that I was going to mention is that I notice a lot of emerging singer-songwriters don't necessarily write from the genuine perspective. Excuse me. That was so bad.
It's probably peaked.
We're on Amazon. We're on Amazon. So, but a lot of like early in their career singer-songwriters don't necessarily write from a genuine place, or that it takes them a long time to find their voice. So what do you think it has been for you to, I guess, discover your own voice? And I'm not saying like voice vocally, but like your songwriting voice. Like, what was it like kind of discovering that? And do you think that you're like, what is it that's helped you get to that point a lot quicker?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, there's a lot of emerging artists that are trying to make an identity for themselves. Like, there's a lot of pressure. I feel like people don't think that their truth is commercially viable, kind of.
Mm-hmm.
And so people will, you know, tell you how you're supposed to build your brand, or like what the kind of secret formula. I don't believe that there's a formula, or, you know, like there's no recipe. But I think for me, writing is how I process the things that I experience in my life and my emotions. So I think that just because it's that healing thing for me, that it just has always come from a place of authenticity, and I'm not willing to compromise myself also as an artist, just because it's so personal and sacred to me. I'm not willing to compromise it. So I think that was what helped me to stand strong and do what I do for them, and, you know, try and come out as just Noeline.
Yeah.
That's a great answer.
No, that's a really good answer. And what I really appreciate about that is, like, that sounds like, obviously it's not a direct comparison, and I hate comparing everything to comedy, but
you're a comedian.
I'm a comedian. I kind of have to.
Yeah.
Like, the one thing that I noticed is, like, for myself, there's a lot of stuff that I write down where I am just working through whatever I've just went through, or whatever thought I have, and it might not hit the stage. But even making light of it just for myself makes me feel like I'm improving on that. The other thing that I wanted to bring up with it is, I think that it's interesting that you mentioned, like, not wanting to compromise on who you are, because one thing that makes what separates a good artist from a great artist is not compromising on who you are. And especially when it comes to being a songwriter or being a comedian, like, where you're having to write from your own experience and present that to an audience. An audience can smell if you're being disingenuous. They can smell it right away. And so you see it so often where you'll see somebody who's technically good at something, but they don't have that thing that shines through, and it's 90% of the time the authenticity.
I think it's the most powerful. I think the truer you can be, the more, you know, the more opportunities, and the more true opportunities. And, you know, for me, it's not about how big of an audience or anything like that. It's I want the right audience to resonate.
And one thing too is worth noting is, like, your truth more than likely is a truth of somebody else as well.
Yeah.
And somebody's gonna find you being genuine in your music and genuine what you're singing about, and connect with it just based off of that, related to their own lives. Like the you know, we're all different people, all living different things, but we all have the same experiences, just written slightly differently. Right? So you know, I could find something to listen to that, you know, in your music, I could find something to relate to, even though we have completely different backgrounds, right? So
absolutely.
It's as long as you're being truthful and honest, I think you can reach that audience, and the right audience, I think, is the word too. I keyed in on that when you said that. That's a super interesting thing to say. Is like, the right audience. I'm gonna find my right audience. I'm not gonna look for the audience. The right audience is gonna find me. It's super fascinating.
No, it's true though, because like, fucking, there's audiences that I really can't do comedy for.
Same as exact same thing as being a comedian. It took you time to not only find your own voice, but to find your audience for that voice too,
Yeah.
right?
And now I'm pretty comfortable with my audience. My audience gets me, and I'm like, that's good. I'm glad. Tell your friends. Your friends are cool. Don't tell your enemies. Your enemies won't like me. I know it. Okay, so something that I want to ask is it's kind of a sidebar, but like, so you mentioned some of your musical influences, but like, do you have musical influences outside of country? And like, what would be some of like the really like the ones that have like had the biggest impact on you as a performer and as a songwriter?
Yeah. Oh, that's a great question. The list is so long. A huge part of my musical upbringing was in Bow Island. There's this venue called the Blues at the Bow Theater, and my best friend's dad was the president of the club. And the deal was, if we would mop the dance floor during sound check, we could listen to the sound checks. It was like 18 plus venue. So until we were looked old enough to sneak into the shows, we would do that. And so listening to those blues music really speaks to me, just because I was so young and I thought it was just the coolest thing to meet all these blues cats from all over the world. But yeah, big fan of Elvis, and lots of classic rock music. Big fan of classic rock, southern rock. Nice. Yeah, I listened to all sorts. When I was in high school, I listened to tons of indie, sad boy pop music kind of stuff.
Bedroom pop stuff.
Yeah, definitely. Like a good song's a good song. I listen to all sorts of music.
Well, I think that's a good point too. Like, a good song is a good song.
Yeah.
I hate when people draw the line in the sand where they're like, I only listen to this genre. I'm like, you're really limiting your own experience. Like, I don't know why you would be so uptight about other.
Well, that's one thing that's been great about this podcast, just for like us. Like, I mean, we're not musicians, music fans. So to be introduced to different albums and listen to stuff that we wouldn't have turned ourselves onto. Right?
Yeah.
Multiple different occasions. We've done an album. Spencer's recommended. I've done an album. We've done an album I've recommended for Spencer, and it's just like opened my music listening experience like so much more, right?
Our biggest crossover is 80s pop. We're big old 80s pop boys.
Yeah, 80s pop.
And then I don't know, I kind of throw in the punk and metal and country, and you throw in the hip hop and
well, I think my music, like what I'm into, is so weird because like I'll listen to like Travis Scott, but then I'll also listen to like Townes Van Zandt.
Yes,
it's so strange. If I actually shuffled my music and didn't go to a specific playlist, it would be such a strange.
Oh yeah, I have to make specific playlists because my Spotify, I think like 3,000 liked songs now, and I realized that I can't just like, if I go to the gym, I can't just hit shuffle because it'll be like all of a sudden I'll get fucking Anne Murray, and I'm like, well, I can't lift to this.
Well, it's like if I go on my recently played or like my repeat or whatever, it'll be like Ice Spice and like Chet Baker. It's just like all over the place.
The more I see you.
With the Bobby. Yeah, so it's a real it's definitely opened my doors personally. So
okay, so getting back to you for a second here, because I really want to ask about this. You're a part currently of the National Music Center's
it's called AE West, through Canada's Music Incubator.
Okay.
Yeah, it's happening at Studio Bell National Music Center.
Okay, so how did that all come about?
Yeah, it was a program. Actually, when I first moved back from my ranch job in Manitoba, I started around November last year. It's kind of a cool full circle moment. I started going to open mics and jams all over Alberta, and one of the open mics I ended up at was at the Ironwood here in Calgary, and it was last year's participants in AE West they had happened to be there playing around for the night. So I met them and they told me about the program, and it sounded awesome. And so I kind of, I was like, I'm gonna do that program. And it felt years away that I would get accepted into it, but I just tabbed it and applied. So that's how that came about.
Fuck yeah. And what exactly is the program? Because I like to those of us that aren't in the know of what that is, or like, I guess we should explain. National Music Center is also a place in Calgary that has basically the Hall of Fame of music and Canadian music history in general. But could you explain the program a little bit?
Yeah, really. I'm honored to be a part of it and get to spend so much time at Studio Bell. It's a professional development program. They have mentors that are, active members mostly of the music industry in Canada. And it's all ins and outs of music industry and all the business side of it. and then there's those creative days. Like tomorrow we have a photo shoot, video shoot, like co-writes. It's kind of like a business week, creative week, business week, creative
That's
week.
cool.
But it's been so great. I would really recommend it to any emerging artists.
Is it Calgary only, or is it?
It's Western Canada.
Yeah.
For this one, but they have one based in Toronto as well.
And is it genre specific, or is it any?
It's any and all genres. Yeah, it's really interesting group of musicians we have. Yeah.
What's
So-
cool too, you get to like brush shoulders with
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
in the industry,
Yeah.
also doing other things as well, right? So
Yeah.
that's a cool.
Well,
cool
and I
space to
imagine
be in.
too, like it's got to be nice because like so much of like so many of the gigs that you do are a lot of times with the same people, and I'm
Mhm.
talking about this as like any emerging artist. Like
Yeah.
a lot of the time you're around the same people, and it's hard to get, I guess, a different perspective, and just being around those people, I imagine, is like, oh shit, the way that you do this is actually something I can apply to my own craft.
Yeah, it's been really interesting learning about different genres, experiences, and how they gig, and yeah, it's really really cool.
I gotta say, like, I think country music is probably the closest to comedy in terms of how you gig, because a lot of the times
Gig hard.
you gig hard, you go fucking all the time, you're doing shows all the
Yeah.
time. You're a lot of the times the people don't want you there that you're singing in front of or performing in front of. And a lot of times you gotta just do the gig, get the money, and go.
Yeah.
All right, good night.
Get your money and run.
See you later.
Yeah.
Okay, so speaking of gigging, like you've been you said that you've been taking it like seriously since January of last year, but I creeped through your Instagram and saw some dates from like 2022. So you've obviously been
Yeah.
doing like you've been gigging a little bit for the past couple of years and like really took it seriously this year, right?
Well, I did a few things when I was in high school, like a few singer-songwriter nights and different things like that. But I was mostly working when I graduated high school. It was COVID. Like half of my high school experience was COVID. There's no shows going on. And then when I graduated, it was the same thing. So I pretty much just worked for 2 years. I played maybe one or two shows, like a couple little gigs, but
Yeah.
it was nothing. I wasn't trying to like grind it out and really make a name or anything.
How's that process been now, doing that for almost a year now? How's that been? How was the first like couple months doing it? Like, how was the adjustment?
It's been the highest highs and the lowest lows for sure, but the most rewarding experience. Yeah, I'm doing what I love and wouldn't change it. Yeah.
Well, and I think it's interesting too, because like having that time between high school and where you're at now, like you worked on a ranch in Manitoba, you've traveled around a bunch, you've had, I think, a more rounded experience than a lot of musicians that get out of high school and just fucking go into it do, because you didn't have that option, right? So do you think that that's like that's got to have helped you out in terms of like just growing as a person, which is applicable to your artistry?
Definitely. That couple of years that I worked was huge. Like, I don't think that I would have had the confidence to jump into a music career and kind of put all my cards on the table. There's no way. Especially, I worked in a bar too, my small town bar, which has helped me a lot.
Let me guess, that inspired some of the song that we just heard.
Yeah, one of the best pieces of advice I got from my boss there when I first started working there. All the regulars were giving me a little bit of a hard time, and she was like, "Noeline, sometimes you gotta drop the rhinestone cowgirl and be a rhinestone bitch." And you know what? I think about that all the time when I get into situations in the dive. So,
well, and it's funny because like I think that like that sort of stuff though, it helps you when you end up going and jumping both feet into the industry, because it's so unbelievably cutthroat, and it's difficult, especially when you're starting out to like really transition and make it your full-time thing. So having those experiences though has got to help, because you're like I feel like when you I don't know, I worked in a lot of ranches when I graduated high school too, and like the biggest thing that I noticed was nothing's fucking personal, and you can get yelled at and called everything. And I wrecked a motor. I fucking a semi engine too. It wasn't even just like a motor. cost $14,000.
You want to learn how to drive my car?
Yeah, no, but here's the thing. This guy was an idiot. He parked in a flat field and put the parking brake on. And he was just like, yeah, it's good to go. And so I just fucking went up and got in, started driving, and just banged the fuck out of the motor. And I was like, what smells so bad?
Something's burning. Yeah, he still doesn't have his license, so.
I do now.
You have your learners.
Yeah, that's. Well, okay, but I had my full license in Saskatchewan, and then I had to give it back because apparently I didn't have my learners. And then I found out recently I had my learners the whole fucking time. So I don't know where the glitch went in the system.
You'll get there, son. We'll take some driving lessons here soon.
I'm very upset about it. I drove all through high school when I was rodeoing, okay? Like, I didn't have a problem with driving at all. Okay, we're moving on. Anyways. I got fired up there.
I'm sorry.
Okay, so, I just saw you at the beginning of the month at the Ironwood, and you had a full band that night. And I was wondering, do you have a permanent band now, or are you still looking for a band?
I'm playing I have a roster of guys that are awesome that I love to play with. I'm playing pretty consistently with the same people. Nice. But, I have subs. So, yeah. But, yeah.
Do you find it
depends. Like, it just depends where we're going, and lots of the players I play with are really busy too with other projects. So, it just depends. My roster.
Do you find it kind of hard because of the fact that so many people are playing in other groups, or is it easy to kind of just like substitute players?
It's definitely, I've become more accustomed to it. Lots of the country guys, or even just players in the city, like they get rotated through with everybody. I used to get really stressed out about it when I first started playing, because I didn't, when I first started hiring bands, and now I've come to trust myself more on stage too. But when I first had my first few band shows, and there was maybe we had one rehearsal, maybe, but usually it was totally most of the time we play, it's unrehearsed. So it's you never know. It's just okay, boys, how's this gonna go? I would love to have a rehearsed lineup soon. But no, they're great.
Some of it's just worrying about what you're doing, right?
Yeah, it's just riding it like it's bucket.
Yeah,
you just
do what you can.
You just go. Yeah.
And I guess the other thing too is having confidence in the musicians that they can adjust to whatever you're doing in the moment.
Totally. And they're so great, such great support. And I had a thought, it just escaped my head. Okay. But yeah, it's just not taking things too seriously too. It's it's live music. Stuff's gonna happen, and if it happens, you just keep going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that's one of the beauties of playing live is it kind of people are coming to hear it live. I mean, for the most part, there's some people that are I want to hear it like the album, and
hear it like the record.
Why doesn't it sound the same? It's I don't know, because they had 8 layers on that, but but for the most part, people go to experience something live because it's live, and because there's that interesting element of things can go wrong. It's why theater has lived on for thousands of years.
Well, that's what I thought of too. It's when I think of film versus theater. Film, there's a perfection aspect to it, where theater, it's different every night. There's that doing it live. I'm sure there's a crossover with being a musician too. Doing it live, the energy of the crowd, how you felt that day. All that sort of stuff goes into it, and it makes it feel like a different experience every single night, right?
Well, and I imagine as the biggest professional actor in the room, you could probably tell us more about that.
Well, I mean, I've been retired for
He was on HBO's Jon Snow sequel.
Wow.
Yeah.
It was Jon Snow.
Cool.
Yeah.
No, I would never really acted professionally. Spencer likes to tell everybody I'm an actor. I did some stuff back in the day, but
I think that you're still an actor.
Thank you.
I think that you still have that spark of a thespian inside you.
Definitely not. I sold myself out for a paycheck. Yeah.
Okay, so now I have a really random question, because one of the things that you have been cultivating an audience for online has been going down south and recording with the Powell River sessions, right?
Yeah.
So how did that all come about? How did you get in touch with those guys, and what the hell? How did you get into that music scene down there? First of all.
Oh well, man, this is kind of a crazy story. I So I sent a song in to a contest called, it was through Master Musicians Festival, which is a contest in a town called Somerset, Kentucky, down in Kentucky.
Arkansas.
And so I sent it in and just kind of, didn't think anything too much of it, and then ended up getting an email. It was like, oh, you're in the top 5, be at the Tipsy Toad on like 2 Thursdays from when I got the email. And I was kind of at a spot, like I made the decision. I was like, fuck it, I'm packing up and I'm going down to Kentucky, but I wasn't old enough to rent a car down there, so I couldn't fly, so I drove down to Kentucky. And I had 3 plans, and it was do this contest, go to just visit Nashville, and go to another festival called Railbird Festival. I ended up staying down there. I was only supposed to be down there for 10 days or 2 weeks, and I was down there for almost a month.
Damn.
But yeah, it was crazy because the weeks leading up to that trip, so much other shit was going on in my normal life, so I had like zero plan. I just drove down there, and I was so I just emailed or DM'd Power. I was just trying to figure out, like, okay, scope out the area. I already love so much music coming out of Kentucky and Tennessee. I always wanted to go down there, so I just took this contest as my excuse to finally make the trip. But I just tried to reach out to as many people as I could beforehand, trying to stick my foot in the door. And then some of them got back to me, and that's how it was a wonderful trip. I met so many people.
That's super cool.
Well, honestly though, like that's another thing that I think helps separate you from a lot of people that are emerging at this time right now, is you're not afraid to reach out and ask for something. Like, I think that a lot of people are afraid to reach out and just be like, hey, what, is there anything I can do? And I think that, like, as somebody whose entire career has been fucking made up of me just
Cold
asking
calls.
people and cold calling, I don't really understand why people are afraid of that, because that's something that you have to be willing to do if you're an artist. Like,
and it honestly, I don't know if it gets easier. It's
oh
always
god, no, it doesn't get easier.
It's that fear of rejection.
But
I think
it's
some
just
people.
Yeah,
you have to do it. You gotta kick the doors down.
Mm-hmm.
In my experience, like,
well, and because nobody's gonna
show up. Like, no one's
No one's giving you the key.
No one's giving you the key. You gotta kick that
yeah.
motherfucker in, you know?
Yeah.
Well, that's like something I brought up. I've always admired about Spencer. Is like Spencer's always had the ability just to put himself out there, ask people for, ask people to let him do this, ask people to let him do that, right? So I respect that quality
awesome.
you two share.
Oh shit. When I sing, people don't nearly give as much of a fuck.
I'm talking more about your comedy and your acting. I've heard you sing.
Yeah. Okay. So one question then is, like, between the Powell River sessions in, like, Kentucky and, like, also being an artist here in Alberta, like, what do you think are, like, the differences between the scenes, like the music scenes?
Yeah. Well, first of all, just the States has so many, with it being so much more populated. That's a whole nother can of worms. But I think Kentucky and Tennessee country music, especially, and this rootsy music, is so much a part of the culture. So people, I think that, considering our population, we have a good scene going on here. But down there, it's like ramped up 10 times because the local people, it's like such a part of everybody's culture.
Yeah.
So people get so excited about their local artists, and everybody you talk to can play and, like, rip a bluegrass G-run. Like, everybody plays and loves music and enjoys it. So, which is not different than here or anywhere in the world, but I think it's just so much more rooted in everybody's history down there.
Well, and I think that, we've talked about this before on the podcast, that certain areas have, like, a geographical sound, right?
Yeah.
And you can notice, like, you hear someone from Kentucky, it's going to sound like someone from Kentucky in a certain way. No matter what the genre of music is that they're playing, you can hear those hints of, like, that Kentuckyism that's added into it, right? And I feel like in Calgary, we have a big thing that popped off in the like early 2010s when like X92.9 was at its peak, and you had the Arkells and all of these bands like that. You saw a big indie alt rock scene pop up here, and it really exploded to where you've got some amazing bands from here in Calgary that have, I would say, distinguished a Calgary sound. And you can hear that Calgary sound if you're listening to certain bands. You go, oh yeah, that's a Calgary artist. But what's different is that like our scene is now in a weird transition period, I would say, in not just Calgary, but probably Alberta, where we are going from that indie alt sound to people are putting on cowboy boots is flat out what it is. Like it's going from this indie alt rocker to like I want to be a fucking
cowboy sweetheart.
Yeah, cowboy sweetheart country singer.
No, it's funny. I shouldn't really even speak on it at all because I've only been around this scene for less than a year. But most of the musicians that I play with and have become friends with are ex-punk rockers.
Yeah.
It's so funny.
We've talked about that too. What's with all the punk rockers becoming country singers and
Yeah.
country artists?
When I asked I asked Nick Shoulder's band mates about that on the podcast, and they were like, yeah, it's I think just like the trend right now, like it's just a wave. It's becoming the popular thing again, which I dig it because I dig both of those styles of fucking music.
I think they share a lot of the same messaging.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of crossover.
It's a lot of group bonding over trauma, I think, is what it is. Like, it's a lot of millennials and Zoomers that were damaged.
Well, if you think about like what we talk about, we were like big outlaw country fans. There's that same sort of energy that came out of punk music too, right? Fuck man, I'm an individual. I care about the things I care about. Fuck you for trying to tell me what to do.
Yeah,
that same sort of energy. There's a crossover there.
And also, I would say that Noeline, yourself, you fit into the OCEU, as we have dubbed it, the Outlaw Country Extended Universe.
Yes.
Because like, here's the thing. I don't know how you feel about this. This is actually an interesting question to bring up with you because you're in this world, but like, I personally feel like outlaw country died in the 70s, and I feel like we do not have outlaw country anymore. We have music that is inspired by outlaw country and can be influenced by it, but like I would not personally call Sturgill Simpson an outlaw country artist. I would say that he was influenced by it and his style is different.
Oh, that's so hard. I have to think about how I feel about that hot take.
This has been a debate we've had a couple different times.
Yeah.
I would argue to say that Stu, if anybody is like doing outlaw country,
like what consists like nowadays. What is?
But it's hard. It's I think it's hard. It's hard to say because outlaw country from the 60s, 50s, 60s, 70s, like not, but it's an era. Like it's so defined by an era and a vibe and everything that was going on then. So it's hard to say what outlaw country is now. So I think there's never going to be a recreation of true outlaw country of like the Highwaymen era,
So that's an interesting point you brought up. That's what we ended up coming to sort of a similar conclusion. Is like, was outlaw country like an era in time? Like, was that genre, like that subgenre of country music, is that an era specific sort of style of country music, right? Because that's what we ended up talking about, and that's kind of one of the big points we brought up was that exact same thing. It's like, was that just a blimp in time where that music, anything coming out of that time was specific to that genre, but now it's tough to say like what is considered. We had our old producer was bringing up all sorts of new artists. Like, would you consider them? Would you consider him or her? Would you consider them all to be outlaw country? Like, I don't know.
And I think like, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I wanted to add this point too. Like, Sturgill Simpson's probably a bad gauge because he is probably the most influenced by outlaw country.
Originally, the debate started with Tyler Childers.
Yeah, and my personal thought is that like someone like Sierra Farrell or Charlie Crockett, they're not outlaw country, but they are definitely influenced by outlaw country artists and style, and them I could make that argument for a lot better than I could with fucking Tyler Childers or Sturgill Simpson. I'm gonna back down from that argument now.
I'd say like his Meta Modern Sounds of Country Music album. I think it's an outlaw country album. But I guess it just depends what's your definition of outlaw country. Like, is outlaw country a sound, or is outlaw country just that era, that Waylon Jennings era of music. Like if it, yeah, I don't know. That's hard. I'm gonna think more about that. What I think.
So that's why we created the extended universe.
Yeah.
The extended universe. That's great.
We categorize people in that, so we don't have to talk about it all the time.
Yeah. So now we're gonna sell T-shirts that say the Outlaw Country Extended Universe.
Yes, I'd buy one. I would so buy one.
Because like we were talking like Orville Peck, we were talking all sorts of artists. Like what is considered nowadays?
Yeah. And it's weird because like I don't know. There is a very there's a distinct sound that I would probably classify into the EU part of it.
Yeah,
you know?
There's a close too with like a singer-songwriter, like a John Moreland, to like it's a whole other. We could talk about this for days. We could talk about this for days.
Jason Isabel. No, I'm kidding.
Jason Isabel. Is that what you just said?
Yeah.
Close enough.
What?
Isabel.
Yeah, that's what I said.
You said Isabel.
No, I said Isabel.
Back me up on this.
Isabel.
Yeah. Thank you.
Well, you know what? Fuck you guys. Okay. No, it's okay. I need to get made fun of every episode. If it doesn't,
if we don't make fun of you, it's not a good episode.
It's not a good episode. There's one episode where I just got shit on for like 30 minutes by you and a guest, and I was like, "Fucking." Well, here's our clips, I guess.
Yeah, I never met the guest before. We just bonded on
shitting on
Spencer.
Yeah, I'm that friend. Okay, so
you're a champ, man.
So I wanna get back to something recently that happened with you. You shared a clip of your song "Purple Gas," and it blew the fuck up. And it was like, it's what, 2.1 million views on your Instagram now.
I haven't checked for a while.
All right, I checked a couple of days ago. We'll fucking go with that. And it got shared by Zach Bryan, which is a huge fucking that's really big. But then on top of that, you have like major music media outlets talking about this clip because it's getting shared by so many people. What does that kind of do when you're a year into taking it 100%, where you're like, this is what I'm committing to? What does that do to your mindset in terms of not just your artistry, but how do you approach the business moving forward when you have a moment that is so big like that?
Yeah, it's definitely been a roller coaster. That's been obviously occupying my brain, those questions a lot. Yeah, when it first happened, it felt like I was under the gun and I need to act now and do something fast to maximize on that crazy good thing happening. But I'm really right now I'm trying to take a step back and just make sure the decisions that I'm making are serving the long term of my career. I'm a long game girl, and I know that I just want to make the right decisions and feel really good about what I put out for music when I put it out, and make sure I build the right team. And
Nice.
No, that's a really good way of going about it, because I think that a lot of times when people have that, especially in this day and age with a moment of virality, like I think 30 years ago it was different. If you had a single that fucking blew up all of a sudden, you're in a different place than if you have a viral clip, right? Because a viral clip, everyone expects that, the next day you're going to release something that's going to be just as good on TikTok. And it's like, shit takes time, So I appreciate that you're taking that time with it. But I also think now my next question is, because of that sort of virality, have you had opportunities come up that have been like, from, quote unquote gatekeepers of like the industry, when it comes from like record labels or managers or anything like that? Or has it been a lot of people that have just been like other artists offering advice?
It's been a mix of both, for sure. I've definitely there's been lots of doors of opportunity that have opened after the viral clip. Sorry, my brain's blanking out.
That's okay.
I've definitely gained a lot of contacts through it, and there's been lots of great support from other artists and interest from the industry. It's been
I like the way you put it about like looking at the long game though too. It's like
Mm-hmm.
you want to not just surround yourself with people that want to capitalize on the.
Yeah.
You know, you want to actually get genuine people who genuinely support what you're doing, right? Too.
Yeah,
That's a
absolutely.
really great way of looking at it, because people can get caught up in just like, this is my chance, this is my 15 minutes, let's pump out the most I can right now, you know.
Yeah.
So it's a good way of looking at it. It's a balanced way of looking at it.
Yeah.
Well, and longevity is just every time it's gonna win over in the moment, you know. There's so many people, like I've seen it happen with a lot of comedians over the last few years because of TikTok blowing up, and so many comics will like have a couple of clips blow up, and then they're focused so hard on getting that next viral hit, and you see the rest of their art though just dipping, and so it's like you have to find that balance, and I think like you not worrying about that as much is fucking the way to go about it. Like I think that's the way to go about it, is to not go, oh, I need to be on the front page of everyone's social media every day, you know, like because that's not sustainable. And so then that kind of leads into my next question though. Have you, because I when I saw you at the Ironwood a couple of weeks ago, and when I saw you, 6 months ago, you've obviously made a much thicker catalog of songs than you had 6 months ago. Like it seems like you've got a lot in your set list that you can pull from, and you have a lot of songs that are written, but you don't have anything recorded yet that's not through like podcasts or YouTube videos or something. Is there a plan to record anything in the next couple of months or a year or something?
Yeah, I'm hoping to get into the studio this winter.
Nice.
And do an EP project probably. But yeah, the plans are all up in the air and a little bit secret right now. But there's music coming out, so
the wheels are turning.
Wheels are turning, everybody.
Don't spill your secrets. It's so much more fun too when you just drop shit.
Ground. That's all I will say.
Yeah. I would honestly just like as another artist, like in a different stream, but like keep your secrets to yourself. Like tell your close friends, but like it's so much fun to drop shit and then have people go, "What the fuck? Where did that come from? That was happening? Fuck." Okay, so last question that I want to ask is, do you have any dates coming up that you want to promote? This is coming out next Wednesday, so.
Okay, yeah. That Thursday, we have our the AUS program is having a showcase of all the artists at the King Eddie Hotel in Calgary, and then I'm hoping to get going on my recording plans in December, January. So I'm a little bit late on dates, but there's some stuff in the works. But that's the main show.
Awesome. And where can people find you? What's your socials?
You can find me on all the social platforms at Noeline Hofmann. That's my @ for everything.
Nice.
Fuck yeah. Get that OG one.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I will add all of those tags below, so wherever you're listening to this, you can find Noeline through that. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you so much for having me.
That was a lot of fun.
It was a lot of fun. Before we go, I need to plug Los Angeles, California. I'm going to be at the Ice House in Pasadena on December 14th as part of the Los Angeles Comedy Festival. Please come out. I'm excited. I think it's going to be fun. The Doohickeys are coming.
Nice.
I'm really excited about that. The Doohickeys are a cheeky country group from LA that we had on the podcast before. Really fun people. I'm really excited about it. It's going to be my first time performing in America. So let's go.
One more thing too. Yeah. Shout out to Amazon and Acast for featuring us. We're on the front page of Amazon Music today, so that was pretty cool.
Yeah, that was a cool thing to wake up to. Shout out to them and to Play More Podcasts for supporting that whole endeavor between those two brands. And if you want to follow Noeline, we have all of the links below. Follow us as well. Give us 5 stars and then just shit on us in the comments.
Yes,
we don't care. Thank you so much for listening. Anal contusions.